The Nintendo Switch 2 announcement last week was exciting for about the hour or so that they had the direct. And since then, it's just been absolutely crazy surrounding this console, and most of it negative. And we have some more information about that. The older Call of Duties looks like they are finally coming back. We've been hearing about this for a while, but some more information is really pointing to a re-release of these games, which is pretty exciting. We also have some more information about PlayStation canceling an event. Not sure why it's happening, but we will take a look at that. And there's a big Xbox sale that we will go over. So we'll go over all of that stuff. But before we do continue, if you enjoy staying updated on everything big in the gaming industry, daily news at 8 a.m., make sure to hit the subscribe, share the video, like the video, and let's get into it. We will start off here quickly going over Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and 3. We've talked about this many times on this channel about the Activision Blizzard games and specifically the older Call of Duties. When will they be re-released? When will they be dropping onto Xbox Game Pass? If you remember, I think it was maybe a year or two ago, I'm not sure exactly when, Xbox went in and fixed the servers and you were able to actually go and play the older Call of Duties online, and the community was thriving when this announcement did come out, because previously there was a lot of cheaters and everything, and this seemingly got rid of that at least somewhat. People were able to jump in, play World at War, Modern Warfare 3, Modern Warfare 2, the older games, and play online and have those experiences that we had back on the Xbox 360 days. On top of that, they discounted these games heavily on the Xbox store, so you could pick them up for very cheap. People thought this was signaling that they were going to be dropping them in to Game Pass at some point. And as the ABK deal was closing and everything, there was going to be a huge amount of games coming all at the same time. Now, that hasn't happened. We've had drips of ABK games coming in, and I think that's okay, especially with the amount of first-party titles that they have been bringing here in 2025. It's keeping those games for slower periods to keep Game Pass exciting for people out there when maybe there isn't a big drop that they have from a third-party deal or from their first party. But I would love to see more of this stuff happening. I would love to see more Call of Duties dropping into Game Pass and getting these older Call of Duties up there in terms of the amount of people playing and bringing it back like it was, in my opinion, the golden age of Call of Duty. We've seen many stories of these games popping up on the store, being discounted again, which was potentially signaling that they will be coming back. It looks like, though, this time, this may be an even bigger signal that Xbox plans to bring back the older Call of Duties to the different platforms out there, and I think probably dropping them in to Xbox Game Pass, as Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and 3 have been rated in Australia. It says here that it seems like things are getting closer to re-release of the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3 for a new generation. Ratings for a cross-gen edition for both MW2 and MW3 have appeared online thanks to the Australian Classification Board, and both were given the classification on April 3rd with a production date of 2025. They say for Modern Warfare 2, the game rated is a PS5 cross-gen edition, and Modern Warfare 3's rating doesn't mention PS5, rather just it being cross-gen as well. Now, those are the PS5 ratings, but obviously you can assume they're going to be putting these everywhere. And I think as well as Xbox Game Passes, back in February, it was reported that 2009's Modern Warfare 2 is set to come to Xbox Game Pass sometime in March or April. So this could be them gearing up for a major announcement for the next Game Pass announcement. And that would be pretty big. It'd be pretty cool to see these older ones drop in. I think everybody would jump in and play who played the older ones and enjoyed them. I also think they'll probably release these on the Nintendo Switch 2 for that launch, which would be an absolute no-brainer. But I hope this is the case. I hope it finally happens. We can stop talking about the rumors about the older Call of Duties coming back, with all of the information pointing to it happening. The next Game Pass announcement, fingers crossed that we will get that in. It could kind of fill in a gap, but Game Pass right now in April is just so packed. Adding this in there would make it crazy. And then you also have Doom in May. So I wonder potentially if they would wait a little bit before dropping them into the service, if there is a month that will be more dead than the other. But April, we've gone through the list of Game Pass games. it's huge. So many games to play. You have South of Midnight that just dropped. You have Claire Expedition 33 that is coming at the end of the month. You also have Towerborn and 33 Immortals, which just recently dropped. So much to jump into here on Game Pass. This would just add to an insane month of Xbox Game Pass. All right, we will move over here. We will talk about PlayStation and the concert that they had previously announced. A lot of people were looking at this and waiting for a big announcement from PlayStation previous to this one. And they came out with this PlayStation concert thing that I think kind of threw a lot of people off. But now it looks like they're actually canceling the tour dates, or at least some of the tour dates here for the PlayStation concert. They say here that the concert is a live stage show featuring music from across PlayStation's 30-year history. The tour will kick off in Dublin this month before moving to the UK for 6 dates, and it should be touring the world between 2025 and 2026. However, people who purchase tickets for certain dates have been getting emails informing them that the show has been canceled and asking them to contact the booking company for a refund. You can see the report here. One user in Belgium shared their email, which blamed unforeseen circumstances and stated that the Brussels concert set to take place on May 3rd, 2025, would instead be held on March 6th, 2026. They say at the time of running, the shows in the UK and Ireland dates, which are set to take place later this month, still appear to be on. So there are certain dates here that are being canceled, specifically Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Germany, Italy, and Australia had all been canceled, which is pretty crazy. There's obviously reasons why they're doing this. They don't really say, they just say contact your purchaser or where you purchased the ticket from. I would guess that they just didn't sell enough, and that's probably why they're going ahead and canceling this thing. But people have booked hotels, they've booked dates to go and watch this and everything. So pretty interesting why they're canceling it. I wonder if it just didn't pick up as much as they thought it would. Not the 30th anniversary announcement. I think a lot of people were hoping from PlayStation when they did do this. It could be pretty cool if you like the music in these games, going and just seeing people play this music live. It's always a fun time. But the reality is, looks like 7 countries, they're reporting here that the dates have been canceled. All right, let's talk Nintendo Switch 2. The announcement around this thing has been nuts. Like, ever since the direct ended, the information keeps coming out about the Switch 2. Things are changing, and it's just really badly handled in terms of the way that they're handling the communications, the PR surrounding it. And you have to ask yourself, will any of this affect the Nintendo Switch 2 sales when it does eventually launch here on June 5th? I don't think it will have a huge effect. If you even remember back to the Xbox One, even with the debacle of that announcement, it still sold relatively well within the first year, and I don't see that changing at all here for the Switch 2. Today was supposed to be a big day for people in Canada who wanted to go out there and pre-order the console itself, but unfortunately, it is not happening, as Nintendo at the last minute pulled the plug here on the Canadian pre-orders, saying that they wanted to align with the US. So whenever we get the announcement for the United States pre-orders, it will be there for Canada as well. Here is the statement they put out. This says, pre-orders for Nintendo Switch 2 in Canada will not start on April 9th, 2025 to align with the timing of pre-orders to be determined in the US. Continues here and says, Nintendo will provide updated information at a later date. The launch date of June 5th, 2025 is unchanged. All of the places in Canada who are having pre-orders, like Walmart was having a midnight pre-order, which they were trying to get ahead of Best Buy and GameStop and the other retailers, all of them put out statements that the pre-orders were now delayed until whenever the US gets their date decided for the pre-orders. And you have to ask yourself why this is happening. I think there's probably 2 reasons why this is happening. One, I'm thinking a price raise is coming here in US dollars, which Nintendo may then say we're going to have to apply that to Canadian dollars, which will make the thing even more expensive. And they're just not ready to decide the price yet. So they have to go ahead and delay the pre-orders. But I think maybe the second thing plays even more into it. And that is that they were worried that Americans would all try to buy their Nintendo Switch 2s from Canada, and they didn't want to have that happening. So they're just going to align the pre-orders on the same date. And one of the reasons why I do believe that's probably more the case here for why these pre-orders are delayed is because we do have this interesting tweet here from Jake Randall. And it says here that Update from canceled Switch 2 UK pre-order. Amazon UK customer service saying they will not ship to the US and will cancel any order from the US. Here is the customer service chat, and they say the order is canceled. Yes, it is canceled. I'm really sorry for the typo again. The order is canceled. This person says, "Oh, I see, no worries." And they say, "Thank you for understanding. I really appreciate it." And they ask, "Is there a reason for cancellation?" They say it is because the UK cannot ship it to the US. So that is an interesting development here, because we were hearing over the last number of days, a lot of people in the United States were thinking that they could just go ahead and pre-order the Switch 2 from the UK and get it shipped there. And it would cost maybe a $20 or something extra. I don't know what the exact amount was, but that was something that a lot of Americans were doing. And I wonder how many of those now are being brought back and canceled. Nintendo does not want people going to other regions, to other countries to purchase the Nintendo Switch 2, even though they're delaying the pre-orders. You can kind of see the way that they rolled this out. Japan, which is the cheapest place to get this thing, is region locked. So they're protecting Japan, where the Nintendo is from, and they're giving it a cheaper price, and they're hoping or making sure that Americans, Canadians, British, they can't go and pick up a Japanese version because it's going to be region locked to Japan. And then now that they delayed the US and the Canadian pre-orders, they're also making sure that you can't just go to the UK where pre-orders are popping up. Like I saw some more pre-orders pop up today. You can't just go and buy that and get it shipped to Canada. That's going to be the same console anyways, because those ones are not region locked. So craziness here. This whole pre-order stuff with the Nintendo Switch 2 has just been a headache for a lot of people. And you have to ask, will this turn people off from when these pre-orders finally come out, from buying it, from pre-ordering it? Are they just going to move away from Nintendo because of all of this stuff at the launch of it? I don't think so, but they got to get everything in order here. It's just been crazy for people who are trying to plan out the funds to buy it and the timing to try to get in there and pre-order it, because they will go fast. That's an issue. Some people, booked off the time to make sure that they could go ahead and pre-order a Nintendo Switch 2. Now everything does change for them. So craziness there. And we'll see as this continues to evolve. I'm sure we'll have an announcement sometime soon as to when they'll be doing the pre-orders, but I think they have to work out the pricing and everything else that's happening economically around the world. The other information here we do have about the Switch 2 is, if you remember during the Direct, they showed the game chat and it was really bad. The game with all of the people's face on camera did not look good whatsoever. And Nintendo is explaining why this is happening here. This looks like this feature is not going to be that nice to use. They explain here why the Switch 2 game chat has a low frame rate. And this was an interview with GameSpot. The Nintendo Switch 2 hardware director, Yakahiro Dota, explains the reason game chat screen sharing runs at a low resolution. Says, obviously chat is meant to run and work simultaneously and coincide with the game you're playing, but we also think it's critical that it doesn't get in the way of the game that's running right now. And so we wanted to definitely make sure what we do was to make sure that running game chat alongside the game doesn't result in the game experience or quality being reduced at all in any way. And then the technical director, Tetsuya Sasaki, adds here, as Nintendo, one thing we really put emphasis on is making sure that everyone experiences a very even experience when it comes to the quality of service that they're experiencing. And based on this emphasis that we prioritize, obviously, if somebody is in a better environment, they're going to get better results in terms of their experience. But we really wanted to make sure that more than anything, people had an equal or even playing field or even experience rather. And I think it was our priority as an entertainment company. And then says, and the other aspect is that we want to make sure that there is enough power reserved for the games themselves. And so we have a smaller area to play around and within to make sure that all these varying aspects fit into it. Things like network environment connectivity. And so we landed on within this margin that we have to work within. This is a good, even experience that we can provide. So the game is not going to run or look as good in game chat as it would when you're just playing by yourself. So keep that in mind. If you think this is a big feature that you're going to want to use and be excited for, I just don't see game chat taking off that greatly on the Nintendo Switch 2. It's just people don't really play Nintendo Switch 2 consoles for that social feature, at least online. It's a very good social feature for couch co-op and everything, but for online with the camera and everything, they've just been so far behind. I wonder how many people will be taking this game chat feature and really, really using it, enjoying it, and going out and buying the camera. It will be an interesting thing to see how it does take off. Now, when it comes to just playing these games and not using game chat, just how do they run? It does look like the Switch 2 is going to be pretty good comparatively to what is out there on the market and where we'll stack up. I mean, it's not going to be coming close to the Series X or the PlayStation 5, but we've already seen some comparisons where Street Fighter 6 was looking better than the Series S. And now we have this here saying Nintendo Switch 2 is doing a pretty good job of turning in the PS4 level visuals with select enhancements. 40 FPS modes could be very frequent in games thanks to 120 hertz screen. And if that's the case, I think that is a very smart move. You know that the Switch 2 wasn't going to be aiming for 60 FPS for every single game at high resolutions or anything like that. But 40 FPS is a nice option to have here, especially on the go in handheld with the 120 hertz screen. I think many people will be very satisfied with that overall experience. But this is during the latest episode of Digital Foundry. They compared footage of Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, Hogwarts Legacy, and Elden Ring running on the Nintendo Switch shown during the Direct with the PlayStation 4 footage, and they've found some interesting findings here. First of all, they say Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate on the Switch 2 is comparable to the PS4 version in terms of resolution and general image quality, but the game benefits from lighting changes introduced in the Integrate version, which is not available on the PS4, resulting in much better visuals in some scenarios. With Hogwarts Legacy, the case is more interesting. The game looks somewhat better on the Nintendo Switch 2 than on the PS4 with sharper and less aliased image despite the lower resolution, 720p versus 1080 upscaled with AMD FSR1, which suggests that the Switch 2 version may be using different temporal upscaling solution that returns better image quality. So far, if you're looking at the Switch 2 and you're coming from a Switch 1, it's going to be a big upgrade. If you're still on the current Switch and you only have a PS4, you don't have a PS5 or a Series X, there is still going to be an upgrade from those consoles over to the Switch 2, which is a good thing. They say of the three, Elden Ring on the Switch 2 is the game that looks the closest to the PS4 version, sporting a similar resolution and only slightly higher shadow drawing distance. And the early comparisons not only highlight how the upcoming console can deliver PS4 level visuals, but also how it can deliver better ones, not only because of more modern hardware, but also because late ports give the developers chances to make different choices that can lead to better results. I really wonder how it's going to stack up on the lineup of consoles that are currently out there. How close will it be to the Series S, especially from what we did see from Street Fighter 6. They say the Switch 2 could deliver significantly better experiences and multi-platform ports from the base PS4 because of the 120 Hz screen. And then the 40 FPS mode and HDR support have been considered as some sort of bonus mode since 120 Hz panels with HDR support are not standardized. So I think that will be a nice addition there to the Switch 2. I think that will be a big upgrade over the Switch 1, specifically having that bigger display, 120 hertz, 40 FPS, HDR. All that will be a nice upgrade there for Nintendo Switch owners and for the Switch 2. And that's some positive news when it comes to the Switch 2 so far with the launch of it. I think the tech in it is a nice upgrade here from the Switch 1, and people who would compare playing Switch 1 versus Switch 2 will be happy to get the upgrade. But the whole lead up to this launch, the pricing has just been absolutely insane. And in fact, if you can't afford a Switch 2, Doug Bowser is just saying that's why we're keeping this Switch 1, because we know people will not be able to afford this Switch 2. They went into this pricing knowing people wouldn't be able to afford the Nintendo Switch 2 on top of all the games that are going to be very expensive. Everyone is talking about this, quote, comparing it to Don Mattrick and what he said about the Xbox One. So it's kind of funny there, those comparisons that keep coming back between the two launches. It says here, this is what Doug Bowser says. As we look at the Nintendo Switch 2 and you think about the feature sets that I talked about, we believe that the pricing is appropriate for the value of the machine and the gameplay experience overall. We recognize there are some people that may not be able to afford the Switch 2's price point. That's why we wanted to make sure that the other Switch platforms available so people still have an opportunity to come into our gaming universe, be a part of these characters in these worlds, and see value, if you will, in whatever rung of the platform they come in. Now, I believe I talked about this in yesterday's video, him saying that it didn't click yesterday just how similar this was to Don Mattrick's response to the Xbox One with the constant internet connection needed in 2013. If you listen to what Don Mattrick said here, we will just quickly play this because I'm telling you, these two releases, these two launches are very, very reminiscent. So here's what Don Mattrick says.
It's a great line for games.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think people are going to love it, and then they're going to understand what we're trying to create and how it links games and entertainment, the functionality of the box, some of the advantages that you get of having a box that is designed to use an online state. So that, to me, is a future-proof choice, and I think people could have arguably gone the other way if we didn't do it, and fortunately we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message if you don't, like it?
If you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline device. I mean, seriously, when I read the blogs and thought about who's really the most impacted, there was a person who said, hey, I'm on a nuclear sub, and I don't even know what it means to be on a nuclear sub, but I've got to imagine that it's not easy to get an internet connection.
So there you have it. I mean, they're not directly the same because he's specifically talking about internet connection versus the pricing if you can't afford it, but it's kind of similar because people potentially couldn't afford a good internet connection back then or didn't have access to it or whatever, and he's saying just stick with the older console. That's where they're going to keep the 360 around. And Doug Bowser saying the exact same thing here with the Nintendo Switch. They're basically just saying, we want to keep you as a customer. We know people aren't going to like these decisions we're making, but hey, don't worry. We're still going to support you with the older versions of our consoles. So just keep buying stuff there until you can finally afford and get enough money to pick up the new version of the console. It's kind of what they're saying. And everyone laughed at that quote back then. Now everyone's laughing at Doug Bowser's quote today. So just crazy how similar these two launches are. And again, will this have an effect? I don't think it'll have nearly as big of an effect on the Switch 2 as it did on the Xbox One, but who knows? There may be people, a lot of people out there who are just going to walk away here from the Switch 2 because of this initial launch debacle that has been confusing, overpriced, so many things going on with it. And we're still waiting for pre-order information in the US and now here in Canada. So craziness. And finally, if you're looking for some good sales, if you don't want to spend all that money on the Switch 2, the Xbox Spring Sale 2025 sneak preview is now live with 400 plus games that have been discounted. Xbox always has good sales. If you're looking at stuff to your backlog that you have not played yet, you can see some of the games here. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora Gold Edition is $23. If you're somebody who's playing through Assassin's Creed Shadows right now and you're in awe of how beautiful that game is and the environment and the changing of weather, I highly recommend trying Avatar, especially at this price, because you will be in awe of how beautiful that game is. And I think the weather effects potentially are better because you can fly around in Avatar and you're going through the clouds, you're getting right into thunderstorms. So it's very, very cool there. If you want to see that, this may be a good time to get it. Banishers Ghost of New Eden is $30. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 Vault Edition is still $75. Dragon Age the Veilguard, $38. That's pretty cheap now, but I believe that's in Game Pass and PS Plus anyway. So, but there's lots of great games. This one here, which I've picked up and played, and everyone was up in arms when it missed the Xbox. Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection here is on sale. Great game. I've been playing through that one as well, but there's lots of other stuff here. RoboCop Rogue City, which is $12. I definitely need to go get that now because I've been wanting to play that one for a while. The System Shock remakes. So lots of stuff, and there will be more games coming out here on sale here, which I believe they say that this is for Game Pass members only, this preview, but then the sale will be open to all players on April 11th. So big sale. I always pick up stuff there and just add it to my backlog, and my list just continuously grows. But I'll end the video there, guys. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
We'll be right back.